Value over Income, the Real Metric of Success. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. The real wealth is often unseen. A man once earned millions selling a product he didn't believe in. Across town, a woman spent her life teaching in a forgotten classroom, earning just enough, but shaping minds that would someday shape the world. Which one was truly successful? In a culture that counts followers, dollars, square footage, we've confused measurement with meaning. We've let numbers define narratives. Somewhere along the way, the idea of success was hijacked by income brackets, job titles, and quarterly reports. But the deepest value we offer often can't be tallied. It shows up in the spaces between transactions, the trust we build, the courage we inspire, the lives we quietly uplift. As the late Zig Ziglar once said, money isn't everything, but it ranks right up there with oxygen. True, but it's not the only oxygen we need. Purpose, impact, and connection breathe life into our existence far beyond what a bank balance can. This book is a reckoning, and a redefinition. It invites you to question the metric the world rewards and consider a richer one, the value you create, contribute, and leave behind. Value doesn't always make headlines, but it makes legacies. In the pages ahead, we'll explore what it means to build a life not just of income, but of significance. You'll meet thinkers, creators, givers, people who chose contribution over accumulation. And most importantly, you'll be equipped to do the same. Not to reject wealth, but to pursue a wealth that lasts. Value over income. That's the real metric of success. Chapter 1: The Income Illusion. He drove a German car, wore a platinum watch, and lived in a neighborhood where lawns whispered wealth. But inside, he felt hollow. No one knew that his success was a performance, carefully curated, meticulously maintained. Every raise brought applause, every bonus a fleeting high. Yet, each night, he lay awake, wondering why it all felt so meaningless. This is the illusion. We've been trained to believe that income is synonymous with success. More money means more impact. Bigger salaries mean bigger lives. But behind this glittering promise often hides an empty pursuit, one that delivers comfort but not conviction. The illusion is powerful because it's visible. Income is easy to measure, easy to compare, and even easier to chase. It shows up on paychecks and tax returns, on LinkedIn profiles and conference name tags. But what it doesn't show is depth. It doesn't reveal whether a person feels useful, alive, or proud of the way they spend their days. And yet, society elevates income as the ultimate scoreboard. We celebrate the athlete with the $1 million contract more than the coach who mentored him. We praise the CEO for profits, and ignore the team that quietly made it all work. We see the numbers and miss the narrative. But value tells a different story. Value is the teacher who changes a student's trajectory, the nurse who calms a fearful patient, the coder who builds tools that make life easier. Their work might not trend. It might not even pay well. But it matters. Deeply. Unlike income, value often begins invisibly. It whispers before it shouts. It doesn't crash into headlines, it settles into hearts. And over time, it compounds. Not in dollars, but in trust, gratitude, and influence. The truth is, income is a lagging indicator of value at best, and a distraction from it at worst. Some of the most meaningful contributions are never tied to a salary. And many high earners feel trapped, not triumphant. They bought into the illusion, only to realize it doesn't buy purpose. That's not to say income is irrelevant. It enables freedom, stability, generosity. But when it becomes the goal, rather than the byproduct of meaningful work, we lose our way. So what would it look like to flip the formula? Instead of asking, "How much can I earn?" we begin to ask, "How much can I contribute?" We stop evaluating a person by their title and start considering their impact. We recognize that some of the most influential people in our lives never made headlines, but they made a difference. The shift from income to value is subtle, but seismic. It changes how we work, how we lead, and how we measure our lives. It turns careers into callings, transactions into transformations, and jobs into journeys worth taking. And once you see the illusion, you can't unsee it. You begin to notice the quiet builders, the invisible heroes, the meaningful creators. You start to question your own metrics. And in doing so, you reclaim something priceless, a sense of purpose not tied to a paycheck, but to a legacy. In the chapters ahead, we'll dismantle this illusion piece by piece. Not to shame success, but to redefine it. Because when we stop chasing income and start creating value, we don't just build wealth, we build lives worth living. Income is visible, but not always meaningful. Value is often invisible, yet deeply impactful. Real success starts when we prioritize contribution over compensation. Where in your life have you confused income with value? Identify one area of your work or life where you've focused on earning. Ask, how can I bring more value here instead? Then act on it today. Chapter 2: What the World Gets Wrong About Success. He stood on the stage, spotlight warm on his face, applause still echoing from the introduction. A best-selling author, founder of multiple startups, influencer with millions of followers. Every visible sign of success surrounded him. And yet, as he opened his talk, he said quietly, "I've never felt more lost." This is the paradox of modern success. The world often applauds the external, while ignoring the internal. We live in a culture that mistakes visibility for value and rewards those who appear to have it all, even when they don't feel it. The world gets success wrong because it confuses what impresses with what fulfills. We've inherited a definition of success shaped by industrial output, celebrity culture, and digital algorithms. It favors speed over substance, growth over grounding, noise over nuance. The result? A generation striving harder than ever, but feeling emptier than before. Success, as defined by society, is a high-performance mask. It rewards burnout disguised as hustle. It celebrates profit without purpose. It assumes that a bigger house, a higher salary, or a longer resume means you've made it. But no one stops to ask, made it where? And at what cost? The world also misjudges timing. It expects instant proof of progress. If your work hasn't gone viral, it must not matter. If you're not monetizing your passion, you're wasting time. But some of the greatest contributions take years, or decades, to be recognized. The teacher who inspires a future scientist may never see the breakthrough. The social worker who helps a child escape a cycle of abuse won't make headlines. Yet these are triumphs. Quiet, powerful, and immeasurable by conventional standards. Another error is confusing busyness with worth. When someone says, "I'm slammed," we interpret it as success. But activity doesn't equal achievement. Many people are running on treadmills, expending effort without direction. True success doesn't come from how much you're doing, but whether what you're doing matters. And then there's the myth of comparison. We scroll, we like, we envy. But what we're seeing is a curated slice of someone's life, not the truth. Success is deeply personal. What fulfills one person may exhaust another. The world's version of success isn't just flawed, it's one size fits none. To find real success, we must look beyond what the world elevates. That means asking deeper questions. What legacy am I building? Who is better because I showed up? What am I creating that lasts beyond me? These are not questions society trains us to ask, but they are the ones that lead to fulfillment. The irony is that when we pursue these deeper questions, we often stumble into the very things the world celebrates: impact, influence, and sometimes even income. But now, they arrive as byproducts of purpose, not substitutes for it. To see the truth, we must step back. We must untangle the applause from the achievement, the salary from the significance, the praise from the purpose. Only then can we see success clearly, not as the world defines it, but as a life of contribution, alignment, and meaning. When we stop chasing the world's version of success, we gain the freedom to define our own. And in doing so, we step into a quieter, truer kind of wealth, one not measured in digits, but in difference. Society rewards image over impact and speed over substance. True success is deeply personal and often invisible. Redefining success begins by asking what actually matters to you. Where have you adopted the world's definition of success without questioning it? Write your own one-sentence definition of success, one that aligns with your values, not society's expectations. Revisit it daily. Chapter 3: Value is invisible, until it's not. A father once gave his son an old watch and asked him to sell it at the market. The vendors offered him a few dollars. Then he took it to a museum, where the curator gasped and offered thousands. Same watch. Different lens. Its value had nothing to do with the marketplace, and everything to do with who could see it. So often, the work that carries the most meaning begins unnoticed. A neighbor checks in on the elderly without recognition. A community organizer toils behind the scenes for years before real change emerges. A founder builds something with integrity while others chase trends. Their contributions don't make noise, but they matter. The world might not see the value yet, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. Value, unlike income, doesn't always arrive with a receipt. It's not always loud or linear. It grows in hidden places, conversations, relationships, quiet perseverance. And just because something isn't acknowledged doesn't mean it isn't accumulating. In fact, some of the greatest value is quietly compounding while the world is looking elsewhere. But this invisibility can be discouraging. When effort goes unnoticed, it's tempting to believe it lacks worth. People start chasing quicker wins, more visible results. The temptation is to pivot to whatever garners likes, applause, or revenue, even if it's hollow. Yet every worthwhile endeavor has a hidden phase, a season where roots grow underground before anything blooms above. History confirms this. Vincent van Gogh sold only a handful of paintings in his lifetime. Today, his art is priceless. Rosa Parks wasn't trying to make headlines when she stayed seated, she was simply doing what was right. The initial lack of visibility didn't erase the value. It deepened it. The problem is we're conditioned for quick recognition. Algorithms train us to expect immediate feedback. But real value operates on a longer arc. It builds trust, integrity, and meaning over time. It may begin invisible, but eventually it becomes undeniable. This doesn't mean all invisible work is valuable. But it does mean value shouldn't be judged solely by visibility. A viral post may offer no depth. A quiet act of courage may shift a life. One is seen. One is significant. So how do we continue to create value when no one seems to notice? By shifting from external validation to internal alignment. When your effort matches your values, when what you're building aligns with what you believe, that's where sustainable contribution begins. And over time, the world often catches up. The artist, the teacher, the parent, the craftsman, the builder, they all walk this path. Their value isn't always recognized in real time. But eventually, something shifts. The impact becomes visible. The story surfaces. The invisible becomes legacy. Value, then, is a form of faith. It's the belief that what you're creating, who you're becoming, and how you're contributing will matter, even when no one's watching. And when you hold to that, you no longer need the world's instant applause. You're working for something deeper. Because in the end, all visible value was once invisible. It just needed time to be seen. Real value often begins unnoticed and uncelebrated. Visibility is not proof of worth, alignment and integrity are. Legacy is the long arc of invisible value finally revealed. Where in your life or work are you creating unseen value, and are you honoring it? Name one invisible contribution you're currently making. Affirm its worth today, regardless of who sees it. Chapter 4: The Legacy Principle. What outlives you? A craftsman once carved a beam for a cathedral ceiling, meticulously shaping wood that would never be seen from the ground. When asked why he labored over an invisible detail, he replied, "Because God will see it." He wasn't working for credit. He was building for legacy. Legacy isn't about monuments or biographies. It's not what people say at your funeral, or engrave on stone. Legacy is what remains when you're no longer in the room. It's the echo of your influence, the residue of your choices, the fruit of the seeds you planted long before anyone noticed. In a culture obsessed with now, legacy is the slowest virtue. It asks questions most people are too hurried to consider. What will last? What will ripple beyond me? What will outlive my name? The answers aren't always clear, but they shape everything. Income is temporary. Influence is transferable. Money circulates, but meaning compounds. The world measures impact in quarters. Legacy unfolds in generations. And the people who understand this build differently. They think beyond applause and beyond the calendar. They create work that endures because it's rooted in something deeper than profit or popularity. Legacy requires intention. You don't stumble into it. You design it, moment by moment, choice by choice. The way you lead a team. The way you treat a stranger. The principles you uphold when no one's watching. These become the building blocks of your unseen architecture. You might not see the structure complete, but others will live inside what you've built. The mistake many make is assuming legacy is for the old, or the wealthy, or the famous. But legacy begins now, with ordinary decisions. A kind word. A principled stand. A quiet sacrifice. These choices reverberate. They pass through families, companies, classrooms, and communities like an unseen current. Years later, someone stands strong without realizing it's because you held the line when it mattered. And unlike income, legacy doesn't need to be broadcast to be real. It doesn't need an audience. It needs alignment. When your actions align with your deepest values, legacy starts forming, even if no one claps. Especially if no one claps. Think of those who shaped your own life. It's likely not their salary you remember, but their impact. A mentor who believed in you. A coach who challenged you. A friend who showed up when it was inconvenient. They may not have called it legacy, but that's what it was. The beauty of legacy is that it democratizes impact. You don't need millions to leave one. You need courage, consistency, and care. You need a vision that stretches beyond your own reflection. A desire to plant trees whose shade you'll never sit under. It's easy to chase what feels urgent, numbers, metrics, deadlines. But legacy whispers a different invitation: build something that lasts. Something that speaks after you're silent. Something that multiplies long after you've let go. That's the legacy principle. What you create today should bless tomorrow. And when you live with that lens, even the smallest task becomes sacred. Legacy is what remains when you're no longer present, not what you leave, but what you build into others. It begins with small, aligned decisions made consistently over time. True legacy doesn't seek credit, it seeks contribution. What are you building today that will outlive your presence? Choose one daily habit or relationship to invest in with legacy in mind. Anchor your action to who you want to become, not just what you want to achieve. Chapter 5: Meaning over Metrics. Redefining Progress. She hit every goal. Doubled her revenue. Grew her audience. Crushed quarterly targets. But when the celebration faded and the numbers were filed, she felt something she hadn't expected: numb. Progress, it seemed, wasn't the same as purpose. In the modern world, metrics rule. We measure steps walked, likes received, dollars earned, hours worked, emails sent. We've built dashboards to track nearly everything, believing that what's measured must matter. But the truth is, some of the most important things can't be counted. And some of what we count doesn't count for much. Progress, as it's commonly defined, is often a trap. It's easy to confuse movement with meaning. You can be accelerating toward a destination that drains you. You can be growing in numbers while shrinking in spirit. Metrics can reflect momentum, but they rarely reveal fulfillment. The problem isn't measurement itself. It's the assumption that numbers always tell the truth. But numbers lack context. They don't account for nuance, integrity, or joy. A person can be winning on paper and losing in life. A company can be profitable and toxic. A career can be impressive and empty. To redefine progress, we must first ask a deeper question: progress toward what? If you're climbing a ladder, you better make sure it's leaning against the right wall. Otherwise, each rung just takes you further from where you belong. And when we blindly follow metrics without meaning, we risk optimizing a life we don't even want. Meaning is harder to quantify, but it's not vague. It shows up in alignment, the quiet resonance between who you are and what you do. It shows up in service, when your work contributes beyond your own gain. And it shows up in energy, when your effort leaves you more alive, not less. In a world fixated on growth, meaning often looks inefficient. It requires reflection, adjustment, and sometimes a slower pace. But it leads to a different kind of progress, one that's sustainable, fulfilling, and rooted in purpose. The kind that builds depth, not just height. Redefining progress means changing the questions we ask ourselves. Instead of, "Did I hit the target?" we ask, "Did I move closer to what matters?" Instead of "How much did I earn?" we consider, "How much did I contribute?" Instead of, "What did I accomplish?" we wonder, "Who did I become in the process?" This reframing isn't anti-growth. It's about choosing the right growth. Growth that doesn't compromise values. Growth that includes rest, joy, and integrity. Growth that nourishes your soul as much as your stats. That kind of progress won't always be reflected in a spreadsheet, but it will show up in your relationships, your inner peace, and the lives you touch. Sometimes, the most meaningful progress is invisible. Healing a wound no one can see. Forgiving someone who never apologized. Choosing patience over pressure. These don't make headlines, but they make humans whole. Ultimately, a meaningful life may not always be the fastest or flashiest, but it will be the most rooted. And when meaning becomes your metric, you begin to measure your life by depth, not just distance. By resonance, not just reach. You can chase numbers and still feel empty. Or you can build meaning, and find that the numbers often follow, but they're no longer the prize. Metrics show movement, but not always meaning. Redefining progress requires deeper questions about alignment and purpose. True growth isn't always visible, but it is always valuable. Where have you mistaken metrics for meaning in your current path? Identify one metric you've been chasing. Pause. Ask yourself, does this reflect what truly matters to me? If not, redefine what progress looks like, and pivot. Chapter 6. The Quiet Contributor, Unsung Heroes of Value. He showed up every day before sunrise, unlocking doors, preparing coffee, and tidying the space no one thought about, until it wasn't done. He was never featured in the company newsletter. He never got the spotlight. But when he retired, the office felt different, like something essential had gone missing. In every community, every organization, every family, there are people who carry the weight no one sees. Their names don't trend. Their titles don't impress. But remove them, and the whole thing trembles. They are the quiet contributors, the unseen backbone of value. We live in a world that rewards visibility. Those who speak the loudest often receive the most praise. But real value doesn't always come with volume. Sometimes, it comes with consistency. With presence. With doing the thing that matters even when no one is watching and no one is clapping. Quiet contributors are the mentors who never ask for credit. The parents who sacrifice dreams for stability. The leaders who absorb pressure so others can thrive. They don't need recognition to validate their contribution. Their reward is internal, a deep knowing that their presence creates stability, growth, or safety. The danger of a culture obsessed with charisma is that we overlook character. We chase stars and ignore the lightkeepers. But true strength often moves silently. It doesn't announce itself. It simply keeps showing up. This isn't about false humility or martyrdom. It's about understanding that value isn't always loud, and that the world needs people who build quietly. The nurse who listens. The engineer who improves systems without fanfare. The volunteer who makes others feel seen. These are acts of quiet revolution, shaping lives through steadiness, not spectacle. Yet, in a world of highlights and headlines, it's easy for quiet contributors to doubt their worth. To wonder if what they do matters because no one's measuring it. But here's the truth, some of the most important changes in a person's life happen because someone else chose to care when it wasn't convenient. There's a kind of dignity in unseen effort. A nobility in doing the right thing for its own sake. These acts may never be documented, but they are never wasted. They ripple outward, influencing culture, morale, and momentum in ways data can't capture. And sometimes, the quiet contributor doesn't just support the mission, they are the mission. Their posture reminds everyone else what matters. They anchor teams to humanity. They elevate the atmosphere not through orders, but through presence. When they walk in the room, things feel steady. When they speak, people listen, not because they command attention, but because they've earned trust. The paradox is that these individuals often go uncelebrated until they're gone. Only in their absence do people realize the hole they filled. And by then, their legacy has already taken root. To be a quiet contributor is not to be lesser. It's to be foundational. The world will always need visionaries, but it will collapse without those who turn vision into reality, one unseen effort at a time. So if you are one of them, or hope to become one, know this: you don't need the spotlight to leave a mark. You only need the courage to keep showing up, and the wisdom to know that value, once planted, always grows, even in silence. Quiet contributors often carry the most unseen yet essential value. Recognition is not a requirement for lasting impact. Silent effort, done with integrity, creates deep and lasting transformation. Where are you contributing quietly, and do you recognize the value of that contribution? Acknowledge a quiet contributor in your life today. Let them know their unseen work hasn't gone unnoticed. Chapter 7: How to Measure a Valuable Life. A man on his deathbed wasn't asking how many promotions he earned or how much money he made. He wanted to know if he had been a good father, if his wife felt loved, if anyone's life was better because he had lived. The metrics changed when time ran out. We spend much of life measuring the wrong things. We count hours worked, awards won, deals closed. But when the noise fades, a deeper question remains: was it valuable? Not just to the economy, but to the people who mattered. Not just to your status, but to your soul. Measuring a valuable life requires a different lens. One not driven by output but by outcomes. Not just what you built, but what it built in others. Not just what you accumulated, but what you awakened. We begin with relationships. Who trusts you because you've been consistent? Who feels stronger because of your encouragement? Value is often measured by the quality of presence, not the size of performance. Some people light up a room. Others light up a life. The latter leave the real mark. Next, we look at contribution. What problems have you helped solve? What burdens have you helped carry? A valuable life doesn't mean you did everything. It means you did something that mattered. It means you took responsibility for a piece of the world and made it better, however quietly. Then comes alignment. Did your actions match your values? Were you driven by internal conviction or external pressure? Many achieve success that looks good but feels wrong. A valuable life is lived in sync, where what you believe and what you do are not divided by fear, ego, or pretense. Another measure is growth, not in fame, but in character. Did you become more patient, more generous, more courageous? Value isn't static. It's cultivated through decisions made in hidden moments. How you respond to failure. How you treat someone who can't repay you. How you show up when it's inconvenient. Also consider impact over time. Short-term wins are easy to spot. But a valuable life creates ripples. It leaves people stronger long after you're gone. It's the coach whose lessons echo decades later. The neighbor whose kindness still shapes someone's worldview. The leader whose integrity inspired others to lead differently. Finally, there's peace. Not perfection. Not comfort. But the deep sense that your days were spent on what mattered. That you ran your race, not someone else's. That your value was not in being everything to everyone, but being fully who you were called to be. These aren't metrics the world hands you. You won't find them on spreadsheets. But they're the ones that hold true when the spotlight dims. And they're available to everyone, regardless of income, title, or education. A valuable life isn't about scale. It's about sincerity. It's not how wide your reach, but how deep your roots. It's knowing that even if your name isn't remembered, your impact will be. We all leave a legacy. The question is whether it's one of value or of velocity, fast, loud, and soon forgotten. Measuring a valuable life is less about what you leave behind and more about who you became while you were here. A valuable life is measured by relationships, contribution, alignment, and character. Value grows through consistent, sincere presence, not public success. Peace and purpose are deeper indicators than recognition or wealth. By your current measures, would your life be called valuable, or merely successful? Create your own list of 5 metrics for a valuable life. Revisit them each week and realign your actions accordingly. Chapter 8: From Paycheck to Purpose. He had the title, the salary, and the corner office. On paper, it looked perfect. But each morning, he sat in his car 10 minutes longer than necessary, dreading the walk through the glass doors. What he once called ambition now felt like obligation. The paycheck was steady, but the purpose was gone. Many people live in that quiet tension, the space between financial stability and existential discomfort. It's the unspoken fatigue that lingers even after a promotion. The question behind the question, is this all there is? The journey from paycheck to purpose doesn't always mean quitting your job or abandoning your profession. It means reevaluating why you do what you do, and whether it aligns with what matters. Purpose isn't a job title. It's a sense of contribution, of meaning, of being connected to something larger than personal gain. For some, the paycheck becomes a prison. Golden handcuffs. Safe, but stifling. They trade hours for income while their sense of meaning quietly erodes. Others find ways to infuse their work with deeper intention, not by changing careers, but by changing approach. A manager who sees people, not just tasks. A technician who solves problems that improve lives. A writer who tells stories that stir something lasting. Purpose transforms the ordinary. It turns routines into rituals and duties into decisions. When you work with purpose, you stop chasing compensation as the only form of reward. Instead, fulfillment becomes the dividend. And ironically, this mindset often leads to better results, not because you tried harder, but because you cared deeper. The shift begins with a question: what am I actually building here? Is it just income or is it impact? Am I stacking paychecks or planting seeds that grow something beyond me? You don't need to be in a nonprofit to live on purpose. You don't have to leave your job to live a meaningful life. The shift is internal. It's about seeing your role as a conduit, not just a container. You carry something valuable into every space you enter: empathy, insight, integrity, hope. These are not soft skills. They are soul skills. And they change the atmosphere of any room. But moving toward purpose often feels risky. It means confronting what you've ignored. It might mean disappointing people who expected you to stay in the safe lane. It might mean redefining success in a way that makes others uncomfortable. But the alternative is living misaligned, successful on paper and restless in spirit. This isn't a call to abandon all structure or reject financial goals. Income matters. But it's a fragile foundation for identity. When purpose becomes your compass, income becomes one of many tools, not the finish line. And from that place, you work differently. You lead differently. You live differently. Purpose doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. A quiet nudge to speak up. A recurring urge to help in a specific way. A deep resonance when you're doing something that just feels right. Pay attention. Purpose leaves clues. In the end, the most powerful lives aren't the ones with the biggest checks, they're the ones that knew why they showed up, and who was better because they did. Purpose transforms work from mere labor into meaningful contribution. You can live with purpose without changing careers, by changing perspective. Fulfillment flows not from what you earn, but from why you act. Are you working from a place of alignment, or just surviving on autopilot? Write down one part of your current work or life where you can shift from paycheck to purpose. Begin infusing that area with intention this week. Chapter 9: Building with Value in Mind. A sculptor once said he didn't carve statues, he revealed them. The figures already lived inside the stone. His job was simply to remove what didn't belong. Building with value is much the same. It's not about stacking achievements or adding layers of complexity. It's about carving away distraction until what remains is meaningful, lasting, true. Too often, we build with urgency instead of intention. We build to be seen, to be safe, to keep up. We follow trends, mimic models, and chase approval. And in doing so, we risk building structures that may look impressive but collapse under their own weight. Building with value demands a different blueprint, one anchored in substance rather than speed. Value asks, who will this serve? What will this solve? What will this sustain? These aren't always the first questions asked in boardrooms or brainstorms, but they're the ones that shape work worth doing. When value becomes the foundation, the structure may rise slower, but it will stand longer. Whether you're building a business, a team, a relationship, or a legacy, value must be the guiding principle. Not what can I get from this, but what can I give to it? Not how quickly can I scale, but how deeply can I root? There's a difference between a product and an offering, a transaction and a transformation. Value is what bridges that gap. This way of building requires patience. It resists shortcuts. It trusts that depth will eventually draw the right kind of attention, even if it takes longer. It's easy to build fast when you're not thinking about endurance. But if your goal is longevity, not just in business, but in impact, you must think like an architect of meaning, not just a marketer of moments. Building with value also requires clarity. You must know what you stand for, or you'll be swayed by what sells. Value-driven builders aren't reactive. They're rooted. They filter decisions through purpose, not popularity. Their work may not always go viral, but it goes deep, and depth lasts. The temptation is to believe that value and growth are at odds. But the truth is, value fuels sustainable growth. It builds trust. It earns loyalty. It invites participation. People return to what serves them, not just what impresses them. A business built on value becomes more than a brand, it becomes a beacon. A relationship built on value becomes more than shared time, it becomes shared meaning. This principle also applies to self-construction. We are always building something within ourselves. Beliefs, habits, reputations, disciplines. If income is your only measure of progress, you might neglect the inner scaffolding. But building with value means developing wisdom over speed, character over charm, and depth over display. Look around and ask, am I building something I'll be proud of 10 years from now? Am I constructing a life that can weather change, not just chase rewards? These aren't glamorous questions, but they're the ones that ensure you don't just build tall, but build true. The legacy of a builder who leads with value isn't measured in square footage or headlines. It's seen in lives enriched, futures shaped, and something stronger left behind. And that's a structure no storm can take down. Value-based building creates structures that last beyond trends and applause. Sustainable success is grounded in service, clarity, and depth. What you build reflects who you are, make it something you're proud to inhabit. What are you currently building, and are you prioritizing value in its foundation? Audit one project, relationship, or goal in your life. Strip away performance pressure and ask, what would this look like if I built it entirely on value? Adjust accordingly. Chapter 10: The Fulfillment Dividend. He had always believed fulfillment would arrive once he hit a certain number. A financial milestone. A title. A lifestyle benchmark. And when he finally reached it, the celebration lasted a few days, but the satisfaction didn't. What remained was an unexpected emptiness, like arriving at a destination only to find the view obscured. Fulfillment is often misunderstood. It's not the reward at the end of effort, it's the residue of meaning infused into the effort itself. It doesn't come from arriving somewhere extraordinary, but from becoming someone aligned along the way. While income pays the bills, fulfillment feeds the soul. One sustains a lifestyle. The other sustains a life. In the pursuit of success, many settle for stimulation, temporary highs that imitate joy. The rush of a deal closed. The dopamine of digital applause. The validation of an upgraded lifestyle. But stimulation fades. Fulfillment stays. It is slow, quiet, and rooted. It does not shout for attention. It simply waits to be noticed. The fulfillment dividend is the long-term payoff of a value-driven life. It's not just about what you achieve, it's about how whole you feel while achieving it. It's found in the harmony between contribution and conviction. When what you give matches who you are, something powerful happens. Work becomes worship, effort becomes expression, and success becomes sustainable. Unlike income, fulfillment is non-transferable. You can't inherit it. You can't fake it. It cannot be borrowed from someone else's path. It must be earned through self-awareness, intention, and integrity. And often, it shows up in the quiet moments, the deep breath after a meaningful conversation, the stillness that follows work well done, the smile that comes from knowing you made something better. Fulfillment also acts as a compass. It points to what is worth repeating. You feel it when you're aligned, when you're investing in people, projects, and principles that matter. It reminds you that even if the world doesn't reward you right away, the act of living in truth is its own reward. There's a hidden irony. Many who chase income in hopes of fulfillment find themselves burned out, disconnected, or lost. But those who chase value often find both fulfillment and sustainable income, because they've built trust, cultivated excellence, and contributed meaningfully. The world eventually rewards what it deeply needs. This doesn't mean every moment will feel magical. Even the most purpose-filled path includes fatigue, frustration, and failure. But fulfillment doesn't require perfection. It only requires direction. It asks, are you moving toward what matters? Are you growing in a way that honors who you are? Fulfillment is cumulative. Like compound interest, it grows as you continue making value-aligned choices. And the longer you live this way, the richer your experience becomes, not always in dollars, but in peace, presence, and personal integrity. That is the fulfillment dividend. A quiet return on a life lived well. We're conditioned to chase what can be measured. But some of the greatest returns are immeasurable. The contentment of knowing you contributed. The confidence of living without regret. The joy of seeing your values lived out through your work, your relationships, your legacy. That's the dividend worth working for. Not applause. Not accumulation. But alignment. And from that alignment flows something money can't buy, a life that feels like yours. Fulfillment is not a result of achievement but of alignment and contribution. The most lasting rewards come from value-infused living, not just financial gain. The fulfillment dividend is a deep peace earned by choosing what matters, consistently. What areas of your life are yielding fulfillment, and where are you overdrawn? Name one activity that leaves you feeling deeply fulfilled. Schedule it intentionally this week, not as a reward, but as a priority. Chapter 11. Becoming a High Contributor. A young woman once asked her mentor, "What's the fastest way to success?" He replied, "Stop chasing it. Start becoming valuable." At first, she didn't understand. But over time, she discovered the truth. Success isn't something you catch. It's something you attract by who you become. To live a life that matters, you must choose to become a high contributor, not in status, but in substance. This path isn't flashy. It rarely goes viral. But it leaves a wake of meaning, a trail of trust, and a reputation built not on charisma, but on character. High contributors are the people others depend on, even when no one is watching. They don't ask, "What can I get away with?" They ask, "What can I give that makes a difference?" They do the extra work, not for recognition, but because it reflects who they are. They are generous with their insight, their presence, their integrity. And over time, they become irreplaceable, not because of what they earn, but because of what they embody. Becoming a high contributor doesn't require a special title or a perfect past. It requires intentionality. It begins when you stop measuring your worth by the size of your paycheck and start measuring it by the size of your impact. It begins when you take full responsibility for your influence, whether that's over a team, a family, a classroom, or a single moment. The world is hungry for people who will show up with purpose. People who lead with empathy, who speak with honesty, who create with excellence. High contributors don't wait for permission. They see a need and meet it. They notice what others ignore. They don't just do their job, they elevate it. This isn't about self-sacrifice to the point of burnout. High contribution is sustainable because it's rooted in alignment. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters, with full attention and deep integrity. The impact doesn't always scale quickly, but it scales meaningfully. And when the foundation is value, the results endure. Being a high contributor also means becoming someone others can trust. In a world flooded with noise, trust is currency. People listen to those who are consistent, not just charismatic. They follow those whose actions match their words. They remember those who made them feel seen, not just impressed. You won't always see the ripple of your contribution, but it moves outward, quietly shifting cultures, teams, and lives. A word of encouragement at the right moment. A project delivered with care. A boundary held with kindness. These small acts accumulate into legacy. And here's the great paradox. The more you contribute from a place of value, the more value comes back to you. Not always in predictable ways, but in real ones. Opportunities. Relationships. A deep sense of peace. Contribution becomes its own reward, and success redefines itself through service. To become a high contributor is to accept that your life is not just about what you consume, but about what you cultivate. Not just what you accomplish, but what you awaken in others. You're not just building a career. You're building a life of significance. And when you live that way, day by day, choice by choice, you don't need applause to know you matter. You've already become the kind of person the world can't afford to lose. High contributors focus on impact over image and substance over scale. Contribution rooted in alignment creates trust, influence, and lasting fulfillment. You don't need a title to be significant, you need intention, integrity, and heart. What does high contribution look like in your life, and are you becoming that person today? Choose one relationship, task, or space where you can elevate the experience for others. Bring your full value to it, not for recognition but for impact. Take care and be well.